Pramila Jayapal and Kash Patel did not walk into that hearing expecting the moment that would freeze the entire room. But that's exactly what happened when one question cut through the noise like a blade. It wasn't dramatic lighting or camera angles that created the tension, just a single, direct question delivered with absolute clarity, and an FBI director who suddenly seemed unable to form a simple yes or no. In a place where powerful people talk for a living, silence can be more revealing than any speech. And this silence told a story none of them were ready to face. First, the back and forth felt like any other oversight hearing. Measured tones, standard protocol, predictable talking points.
Questions recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Patel, before you joined the FBI, you had very strong opinions about what the FBI was hiding regarding Jeffrey Epstein. In a September 2023 interview with Glenn Beck, you said the Black Book is under the, quote, direct control of the director of the FBI. In December 2023, you said, let us know who the pedophiles are. Even for a short time after becoming FBI director, in February of 2025, you tweeted, quote, there will be no cover-ups, no missing documents, no stone left unturned. In June, you told Joe Rogan, quote, we've reviewed all the information, we're gonna give you every single thing we have and can. But then suddenly in July, everything changed. You and Attorney General Pam Bondi released one video and said that there was nothing more to see. Your July memo says you uncovered more than 300 gigabytes of data and physical evidence, but that you had decided no further disclosure would be appropriate or warranted. That is a quote. I think what happened, Mr. Patel, is that suddenly you discovered that Donald Trump's name was all over these files, and you started a giant cover-up. So you are under oath, Mr. Patel. You just testified to Mr. Swalwell that you did not speak to the president about the Epstein files. To your knowledge, did Attorney General Pam Bondi speak to the president about what was in the Epstein files?
I can't speak for Attorney General Pam Bondi.
So to your knowledge, you don't have any information. The question was, do you have any knowledge? Do you have any knowledge?
I can't speak.
You are refusing to answer the question, so let me tell you that the Wall Street Journal reported that in May, Bondi told Trump that he was in the Epstein files, and at the same meeting said that the DOJ did not plan to release the files. Yesterday, you testified to Senator Kennedy that there was, quote, no credible information that Epstein trafficked girls to anyone else, and that you have, quote, continuously and publicly asked the public to come forward with more information, and we'll look into it. Today, in response to Mr. Massey's question, you appeared to say that the survivors were not credible. These are survivors.
That's not at all what I said.
Okay, great. I'm going to ask you this in a second, but let me tell you about the survivors, and let's bring them up here into the room. These are women who came to the Hill and testified that they were groomed and raped at the age of 14 and 16 years old, and they called to meet with the president and to meet with the FBI and to have people investigate their claims. Some of them have never testified before. If you are so interested in getting the public to submit any information, why have you not met with them? You said you haven't met with them. Have you met with them? I'll give you one more chance.
My job as the FBI director is to invite
all investigative leads. Is the answer yes or no to whether or not you met with these women who were sexually abused and raped?
Any insinuation by you or any people on your side that I am not manhunting child predators and sex traffickers, just look at the stats. And you talk about cover-ups, man.
Mr. Chairman,
you talk about cover-ups.
And I will take as much time as I
Where
want.
were you during the Obama and Biden administrations when these so-called cover-ups were going on? Why didn't anyone in those administrations talk to any of these purported witnesses? I have welcomed every single person to provide credible information.
Time belongs to the gentlelady from Washington.
And I'm going to take another
when you
couple
accuse
of
the
minutes.
witness of something, he's allowed to respond. That's how it works. You
Listen, he didn't even, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, you have always been fair, but this is not fair.
And you will get
this is my time, and he said that the witnesses were not credible.
Seconds of time.
I'm going to get an additional minute of time because that's how much time he took.
You won't get a minute. You'll get some seconds. What we think is under 5 minutes. You don't get to demand how much time you get. That's not how it works.
Mr. Patel, are the victims of the Jeffrey Epstein horrific trafficking ring, are they credible?
Any person with information about ongoing sexual trafficking.
I'm asking you if they're credible.
Ma'am, I'm commenting on the evidence we have.
But
we have routinely asked for people to come forward with more evidence, and we will look at it. And the evidence that we have was the same evidence that the Biden and Obama Justice Departments had. And they determined, not me, they determined that information was not credible.
Chairman, he's not letting me even ask my questions.
You ask the questions, he gives an answer. You may not like what he says, but that doesn't mean you get to interrupt him.
He's not answering my question.
Mr. Chairman, could we restore the gentlelady 45 seconds so she can complete her question?
We'll give her additional 30 seconds, which is what I said earlier.
I'm going to keep taking my time. Because
no, you'll take the time that you get.
You are not answering the question. The question is,
you just don't like the answer.
Are these women credible? It's a yes or no answer.
I have answered the question.
Well,
and
what is the answer?
I keep telling you, I'm the only FBI director that has welcomed new information in this case. This administration is the only one that has welcomed any new information in this case.
Is there a yes or no to
present new credible information? Present new information.
Are the victims credible or not?
I'll tell you what happened in the last Trump administration.
Are they credible or not? You can't even say.
Victims credibly came forward, and you know what happened? President Trump authorized the indictments of Jeffrey Epstein. Not Biden, not Obama.
President Trump
no one else.
called the entire thing a Democratic hoax. So I would like to ask you,
the gentlelady's time has expired. I gave her the additional 45 seconds she requested. The gentlelady yields back. The gentleman from New Jersey is recognized for his 5 minutes.
If you would meet with the women who were sexually abused and raped and groomed at the ages of 14 and 16 years old. Are you going to cover up? Are you going to continue to cover up for the rich and powerful men, including those that might be on this committee?
I can yell too, Mr. Chairman, but I don't want to yell above this.
The time belongs to the gentleman from New Jersey. I appreciate the gentlelady yielding back.
Are you going to allow them to testify, Mr. Patel?
Go ahead.
Will you allow them to testify to you, Mr. Patel?
Mr. Patel, thank you for being here. I know it's been an interesting and difficult 2 days. And I wasn't going to talk about the Epstein thing because there's a lot of other issues that affect the FBI, but I have to say a few words. I've sat.
But Jayapal had come prepared. She wasn't interested in rehearsed answers or surface-level summaries. She wanted to know why a case involving one of the darkest exploitation networks in recent history was being treated like something the public wasn't allowed to see. And when she asked Patel why the full Epstein files were still sealed, everything changed. His confidence faded. His tone shifted. And for the first time that day, the room leaned in. Because the truth is, Patel had positioned himself as the man who would bring full transparency to a case millions believed had been buried for years. He had told reporters, podcast hosts, and lawmakers that he wanted every piece of evidence exposed. He had made the public believe he was ready to peel back the curtain on a web of influence and misconduct that spanned countries, industries, and some of the wealthiest figures alive. But when Jayapal asked him to explain why hundreds of gigabytes of evidence suddenly required no further disclosure, his answers didn't match the promises. Her voice stayed calm, but her questions cut deeper each time. She pointed out that Patel's own memo claimed the FBI had recovered more than 300 gigabytes of files, photos, logs, documents, recordings, all of it connected to the network Epstein built. That amount of material is staggering. It's the kind of volume that usually leads to years of analysis, investigations, and disclosures. But instead, according to Patel, there was nothing more appropriate to release. The contradiction was impossible to ignore. Jayapal didn't just highlight the inconsistency. She pushed him to account for it. If there was nothing more to see, why did the files exist? If everything had been addressed, why were survivors still begging to be heard? And if the case was truly being handled with integrity, why did the public feel like every answer exposed a new layer of secrecy? Patel had no clear explanation. He pivoted. He circled. He recited policy language that never actually addressed the core question. And every time he dodged, the tension rose. Because you can hide behind jargon, but you can't hide from a simple yes or no forever. That's when Jayapal brought up something Patel didn't expect. Reports that individuals inside the Department of Justice had privately discussed the contents of the files with people they should not have been discussing them with. She didn't accuse him of wrongdoing. She referenced what journalists had already reported, what analysts had dissected, and what the public had been whispering about for months. And the moment she asked whether he knew about those conversations, Patel froze. Not physically, but rhetorically. The confident FBI director who could explain entire policy frameworks without hesitation suddenly couldn't confirm or deny a basic point. He said he couldn't speak for anyone else. He said he didn't have knowledge. He said he wouldn't comment on reports, even though those reports were central to understanding why the files remained locked away. Jayapal wasn't satisfied, and neither was the room. When a leader won't answer straightforward questions, it makes the public wonder what the real answer is. But the most powerful part of the exchange came when Jayapal shifted away from the political implications and centered the people who mattered most, the survivors. These were individuals who said they were groomed as young teens, who came forward against incredible pressure, who risked everything to tell their stories. Many had traveled to Washington, hoping to meet federal officials who promised transparency. Yet when Jayapal asked Patel whether he had ever met with any of them, he couldn't give her the yes or no they deserved. He tried to explain. He said his role didn't require direct meetings. He said he welcomed information. But Jayapal wasn't asking about logistics. She was asking about humanity. If someone claims to welcome information, the bare minimum is being willing to meet the people who lived the experience. And when Patel deflected instead of answering, the disappointment in the room was visible. Jayapal pressed harder. These survivors had shared their trauma publicly. They had testified that they were targeted as minors, manipulated, and forced into situations no young person should ever experience. They wanted justice. They wanted their stories validated. And they wanted to make sure the system didn't protect powerful people at their expense again. Jayapal demanded to know, were they credible? This is where Patel completely lost control of the narrative. He wouldn't say yes. He wouldn't acknowledge their accounts directly. He kept referencing old decisions made by previous administrations, as if repeating past determinations somehow absolved the present of responsibility. Jayapal wasn't asking about bureaucratic history. She was asking whether he, as the current FBI director, found these survivors believable. His refusal to give a direct answer was stunning. In that moment, Jayapal's frustration became the audience's frustration. How could the head of a federal law enforcement agency struggle to affirm the credibility of people who had risked everything to expose exploitation? What message did that send? And why did it feel like the system was once again shielding people with power instead of standing with those who suffered? As Patel grew defensive, he made a critical mistake. He tried to deflect, pivoting to previous administrations, unrelated policy issues, and what others did or didn't do in the past. Jayapal immediately called it out. He wasn't answering the question. The more he tried to shift the blame, the more it looked like he was trying to avoid the truth. And lawmakers on both sides of the aisle noticed. The hearing spiraled into overlapping voices, procedural interventions, and visible frustration. Members demanded order. The chair tried to restore control. But nothing could erase what had already been laid bare. A moment where accountability collided with evasion, where truth-seeking collided with deflection, and where the public finally saw the cracks that survivors had been pointing out for years. Yet the most important part of this confrontation wasn't the shouting or the procedural chaos. It was what the exchange exposed about the broader system. Because the Epstein files are more than documents. They represent a pattern of influence, silence, and protection woven tightly around some of the most powerful individuals in the world. For decades, survivors have said their stories were ignored, delayed, or buried. They've watched investigations stall, evidence disappear, and perpetrators walk away untouched. Jayapal's persistence forced the spotlight back onto that system. She made it impossible to hide behind bureaucracy. She asked the questions millions have been asking for years. Why were the files sealed? Who decided the public didn't deserve transparency? Why were survivors sidelined? And why does it feel like the rules change when powerful people are involved? Patel's answers, or lack of answers, didn't resolve those questions. They amplified them. Every time he dodged, people wondered what he wasn't willing to say. Every time he deflected, people wondered what he was trying to protect. Every time he referenced decisions from years ago, people wondered why a case this serious was being treated like a political inconvenience rather than a moral imperative. Jayapal didn't let him wriggle out. She wasn't intimidated by protocol or title. She stood firmly in her role as a representative of the people, especially the ones who don't have the luxury of power, influence, or institutional support. And that's why this moment matters. Not because of the politics, but because of the principle. No one, no matter how wealthy, connected, or protected, should be beyond accountability. The survivors deserved answers. The public deserved transparency. The truth deserved daylight. Instead, they got evasions. But here's the part that will stick with viewers long after the clip ends. Jayapal didn't back down, and she didn't let the discomfort silence her. She gave voice to those who had been ignored. She forced a national conversation that many people in power hoped would die quietly. And she made it clear that the fight for transparency wasn't over. Not by a long shot. As the hearing wrapped and Patel tried to return to talking points, the energy in the room had already shifted. People weren't convinced. They weren't comfortable. They weren't ready to accept closed files and vague explanations. They wanted the truth. And Jayapal had shown them exactly where to look. This confrontation didn't give us all the answers, but it raised the right questions. It revealed the cracks in the official story. It reminded the public that justice doesn't happen automatically. It happens when people demand it loudly enough that the walls of secrecy can't hold anymore. If you believe survivors deserve to be heard, if you believe transparency matters, if you believe no system should silence the vulnerable to protect the powerful, then don't just watch and move on. Stay informed, stay engaged, and make sure stories like this aren't forgotten. That if you found this breakdown valuable, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on notifications so you never miss the stories others try to hide.